We're going to be having a look at the LA Gold Series shaft. It's the newest addition to the line and incorporates some new materials, but takes on some learnings from the Bryson and the DJ series shafts that they launched before. So, newest series, is this their best shaft yet? So we've got the 3 series of LA shafts, the sort of premium end LA shafts. They've got the A series as well, but we've got the DJ, the Bryson and the Gold here. So just to recap briefly on what makes these shafts, the DJ and the Bryson, what they are, and then we'll go into hitting each one. So the DJ series is really about smoothness and feel. So the principle being that Dustin's one of the best feel players ever, and this shaft, the primary thing was getting the smooth transition through the handle to the club head. And the way they've achieved that is on a constant taper mandrel. So you haven't got any kind of longer parallel sections that can filter out any of the feel. You've got a constant progression of energy transfer through the shaft, and that's what gives it its smoothness. More of a mid-launch shaft overall. Then, and a nice sort of a gloss finish as well. In the Bryson series, we're going to a matte finish, obviously both blue, a very nice midnight blue, I must say. Matches my top very well, don't you think? Now, structurally, being a shaft designed by Bryson, this is about stability. It's a much more stable design, lower launch, lower spin. Its structure is around a 16-sided HD design. Now what that means is wrapped up from 16 points. And by doing that, you're creating a really stable structure. You're creating lots of smoothness to the shaft because you haven't got kind of one single point you're starting those wraps from, but it's a really consistent design. It's designed to hold on tight, especially through that midsection and lower part. Keeping that flight down and basically designed for a real kind of heavy hitter, unsurprising based on how Bryson sets up. And then what we've done with the, what they have done with the Gold Series shaft is they're keeping that HD structure from the Bryson design, but trying to implement kind of a mixture of best of both worlds, some smoothness. There is a layer of boron within the shaft. And what that does do is it increases stability, but it helps just to smooth down some of the kind of the difference to graphite. It gets a smoother feel. They've softened the handle very slightly on the Bryson recently to try and get a little bit more feedback into that shaft because it was a bit of a poker. But that addition of the boron through the shaft, you got the rigidity and the stability from that HD 16-sided design, or certainly the HD side. Fact check on the 16-sided, I'll double check for that for you. But certainly the principles of the HD design of the Bryson with the stability, but that layer of boron to smooth it out, to give the player the best of both worlds. A little bit more of in principle of a mid-launch, mid-spin design. But what we're going to do is hit 3 of them now and look at how they feel in swing, but also what the data shows us and how can we rank and rate each shaft relative to one another and which shaft is going to suit what style of player. So I'm going to start with the DJ series in the same order that we ran through. So again, remember this is a slightly higher balance point design and designed around smoothness of feel. And so that constant taper design really factoring in towards you're not getting any stalls in energy transfer through the shaft with kind of parallel spots. So it's just a constant profile through. And that's where the principle of that smoothness of feel comes from. Yeah, definitely not a harsh shaft at all. You really can feel that whole shaft load through it. And whilst a higher balance point doesn't necessarily suit my technique quite as much, I got away with that one as a little bit of a toe strike, but wasn't a hard feel whatsoever. I think that's, someone like, Dustin, a shaft named after him, you might think you've got to bully this to get the best out of it, but actually there's quite a nice bit of load through the shaft. So it makes you feel like you haven't got to work it too hard in order just to get a bit of kick out of it. Definitely sense that midsection loading, easy to get, feel-wise, easy to get up in the air. I'll give it one more to get a batch of data, but certainly suits someone who's a little bit more, if you tend to pull on the shaft a little bit, if you're more of a kind of a rotation-based, a quieter arm action, that's where the counterbalance tends to work well. Or if you struggle to get the face squared up, higher balance point means you're reducing the energy required to get the toe through the ball. So that just means that if you're less active with your hands and tend to block the ball out a little bit right, that's where this shaft might feel quite nice to swing. So as I just quietened my arm action down that last swing, that was the best from a timing point of view. Definitely creates a little bit of kick up in the air. So if you're looking for a shaft to get it airborne a bit more, definitely a good option. Very smooth feel, does do what it says on the tin. but not necessarily something for someone who's a real kind of heavy hitter at it, more create a lot of speed, yes, but want to feel that shaft kick, give you a little bit of help. So with the DJ series being counterbalanced, going into the Bryson, the same weight and same kind of dead weight profile, there's a swing weight point and a half difference. So that counterbalance on the DJ really makes a difference to the way it swings. So noticeable how much more stout this is in terms of profile. You don't really, you do that and there's not really a lot of movement, very, very stable through that midsection. But the design is exactly that. It does exactly what it says on the tin. It's designed for a heavy hitter, something where you're trying to get the shaft to pare it down and get control over the ball. And a much, much harder feel as a result. It's certainly a shaft where if you're looking to get something back from the shaft, this will not be the shaft for you. However, if you're looking for the shaft to give you that feeling of trust that it's not going to get away from you, and something that actually you can really get into and give it a bit of stick, then this shaft can put up with it. It's a very strong feeling shaft. So not something that's going to suit everyone, but if you think who the design is for, it actually encourages one to get after it. That's then a noticeable change in flight. This is exactly the same head I'm using with all these three shafts, but that really has kept the ball flight down. Now some of it is how I react to the feel of the shaft. That DJ with that sensation of a little bit of load and kick, the counterbalance lets me get the head through a little bit more. So I'm adding a bit of loft to impact as well. This one I've got to work at it and makes me get a little bit more, effectively not on top because the angle of attack's up, but get a little bit more of a lead and get through the back of it and knocks the flight down a bit as well. But very, very strong feeling shaft. I'll hit one more with this, but you've got to want to get at it. You need to load this shaft to get anything from it. If it's a quiet tempo that you've got, if you're sort of smoother transition, this shaft might feel a little hard work. But if you give it a batter, it's quite nice. So into the new series of shaft, it sits a little close to the DJ in terms of balance points. Swing weight wise, about a point lighter than the Bryson. So there is a progression in weight through these models where the DJ is the highest, then this, then the Bryson series. But interesting to see how this performs from a flight point of view. But the claims about the smoother feel, but using that stability through the midsection with that HD design, how does that compare? Now it doesn't mean anything from a performance point of view. It's a great looking shaft. The black with the gold and the white, I think it pops just enough. But it's a very, if the logo is on the underneath, then obviously we do the shaft puring, so it could come out anywhere. But it's a very clean, simple look. And I think going into the gloss finish from the matte, it's just a nice look. It's a slightly wider feel at the top of the grip, so you get different outer diameters of shafts. So when you're gripping clubs up, a single layer of tape on this shaft versus one of the other models could create a different size, and this certainly feels a little bit thicker at the top. So be mindful of that when you're gripping the club. A little bit more load through, you can feel a bit more, just the old unscientific waggle test. You can just see and feel just a little bit more give back than that Bryson series shaft, which unsurprising. Yeah, and immediately you get that sense, you get a little bit more back from the shaft. The shaft's trying to give you some responsiveness back. The interesting thing is, I felt with the DJ that there was almost a little bit of whippiness through the bottom part of the shaft. And with this, you can certainly feel some load through that mid to lower midsection. It feels like it's giving you a little bit of a helping hand getting the ball off the tee and getting it flighted. But then you're back into that tightness at impact. So it feels like a lower torque version of the DJ with the balance a little lower down. So certainly that principle of keeping that stability but getting some extra feel into the shaft from the Bryson, actually 100% that is a success. Don't have to work anywhere near as hard. That was a little bit low on the face, so the spin will pop slightly. But it felt like it clung onto the head quite well. And I think that's something where you're getting a shaft that has feel, that doesn't lose that stability at impact. So as you mishit it, there's some twisting that's going to happen, whereas the harder, tighter, stiffer, lower torque shafts cling on tighter and stop that deflection. To gain feel, sometimes you have to lose some of that stability. And that's actually something from that strike, which is a bit low on the face. it held on pretty well. It didn't feel like the ball was going to go all over the place. So I think what they've incorporated into this is some of that stability through impact, but in a shaft that it's a little bit more mainstream. The Bryson is definitely very particular and aimed at a really very specific style of player. 90% of golfers aren't going to enjoy the feel of that because it'll be a bit too hard. This certainly gives an alternative to that. And again, merges actually really does do, very consistent from a flight point of view and from a directional standpoint. Granted, the dead weight suits me, so that's a part of it, but there's definitely more load, there's definitely more feedback, and in terms of have they incorporated some of both elements to it, the stability of the Bryson with some feedback of the DJ, absolutely. So we talked about the feel when hitting the shafts. We're just going to look at the numbers now. So I'm going to focus a little bit on the launch and the spin first, so these two columns here. So what is noticeable is that difference in flight. So the DJ at the bottom has the highest flight. As I described, felt like I could get the head underneath, that little bit of counterbalance and the softer profile through the tip just to get that flight up. And this won't be the same for every golfer. Obviously this is a sample of shots for me, but it's seeing a noticeably higher launch than the Bryson shaft, but spins up a certain amount. Now, some players that's brilliant to get more spin. Others it's going to hurt. For me, it's hurt from a distance point of view, but quite a high launch mid-spin shaft. Then we go into the Bryson, and that is noticeably different in terms of launch and spin. It's much lower on spin, 10% lower on launch. Now, I'll come on to one other element of that shortly, but totally matches the shaft that's designed to bring the flight down, play really stably, and keep the spin low. And then we do find the gold in the middle. It's up a little closer to the DJ in terms of launch, but the spin stays in a really nice stable area. So ultimately you might say, well, are you not always looking for higher launch, lower spin, which is what the gold does appear to do. There are going to be players that each different shaft in here is going to suit more, but in terms of looking at them on face value of what they do, the responsiveness, that mid-launch, that more user-friendly profile is creating a more kind of rounded launch and spin, probably more versatile shaft type for most players, but something that actually is going to suit a broader range of players than something like the Bryson that requires hitting at. The Gold Series definitely has more versatility to it. It's a more user-friendly profile. What I did want to talk about was that far left column, the club speed. Now, this is where the shaft itself can affect the player. So for me, that counterbalance is not something that suits my swing style. So it's 3 to 4 miles an hour lower on club speed than I was with the other two shafts. Now, part of that, the Bryson being the highest speed, I felt like I had to go at it to get something from it, so I put more effort in. And then the Gold being a little bit more comfortable, just graded that club speed back a little bit. But the DJ sits way below, simply because for the way that I generate speed and my swing works, I can't accelerate the way I would normally do so and generate the same timing and quality of contact. I've had to rein that back. So that's not a comment on how good or not the DJ shaft is, it's just more how it suits my swing and my movement patterns. That's something that's really critical when we're fitting shafts. As you can see, we've got some different patterns and different profiles of shafts here. So what LA are doing is that they're covering off the different options of what shaft type, balance point, feedback and feel, what they have in their range, so that there are going to be shafts that a wider variety of golfers are going to go into, rather than you're either in the heavy counterbalance DJ or you're in the brute of the Bryson shaft. That Gold Series slots right into the middle. But different players will find that certain shafts will just swing better for them, and your efficiency of movement is going to be better, which is why we're getting such a disparity in club speed there. Outside of that, they're really looking at the design of the shaft, what they're meant to do, and what shafts can actually do. There's quite a broad spread in terms of that launch and spin. So what they've done within these ranges, they've given quite noticeably different shot patterns. We know from various sort of brands and models over the years that it can be quite hard to see noticeably different launch and spin from the shaft on its own. LA have managed to do it here. So from a fitting point of view and from the player's point of view, you're definitely seeing Bryson Series is, as described, and it might seem odd to say that, but it doesn't always come out this clearly. Low launch, lower spin, if you're a strong enough hitter to get the most out of it. The DJ is responsive and higher launch, that counterbalance being part of that. But latest shaft of the range. I think what's going to make it more successful is that this just is going to suit a wider range of players. I think the feel is more universal. Certainly that stability on spin sits in a good place, but I think there are more players that are going to suit this model of shaft, which is where the real success for LA is going to be. It looks great, doesn't mean anything to the numbers, but it's a good feel-good factor when you're putting it in. It's a nice sort of classic gloss finish black shaft, but clearly they've gone to high-grade materials. That's something that they've worked with in their previous models, but I think the all-round approach that this shaft has is going to make it a real winner for them, which is why we're adding this into our demo matrix in the coming weeks.